You know, you probably weren't expecting to start this off with a quote from George Costanza, but here we are. It's a funny line, right? But what if he was accidentally onto something really profound? What if, at a very specific point in history, two worlds didn't just bump into each other? What if they violently split apart, creating two completely separate realities that you and I have been living in ever since?
So, in this explainer, we're going to zero in on one single year, 1848. But we're not going to look at it as just a year of political revolutions. No, we're going to explore it as the moment that triggered a huge split in how we understand existence itself, a schism that, believe it or not, is still defining our world today.
Yeah, forget about the clashes you read about in history books. The real revolution of 1848 was something deeper. It was a metaphysical rupture. It's like a deep crack formed in the very foundation of how we see everything, locking us into this epic conflict between two totally opposite views of reality: spirit versus matter.
Okay, this is where it gets really wild. The timing is just uncanny. First, in February of 1848, Karl Marx publishes the Communist Manifesto, basically writing the Bible for materialism. Then, just 1 month later, on the exact same day, March 31st, two things happen. In New York, the Fox sisters hear these mysterious rappings that kickstart the entire spiritualist movement. And at the same time, a seer named Andrew Jackson Davis has a vision and declares, "A living demonstration is born."
You know, it's so easy to just write this off as a weird coincidence, but the sources we're looking at suggest something else entirely. They suggest this was the opening shot in what's become a 175-year-long war for the modern soul, a fight between two fundamentally different ways of seeing the universe.
So this split, it basically created two teams with completely different rule books for reality. On one side, you've got a world that's all about spirit and consciousness, and on the other, a world that's just pure, cold, physical matter.
And I mean, the divide could not be more stark. The spiritualist view says that reality is fundamentally alive, that it's intelligent. The materialist view? It argues that reality is only what you can touch and measure, that consciousness is just a ghost in the machine, a temporary fluke of brain chemistry. It's like they're running on two completely incompatible operating systems. So from the materialist corner, you get this iconic line from Marx. Spirituality wasn't some connection to a higher truth. No, it was a drug, an illusion cooked up by the powerful to keep everyone else numb to their suffering here in the material world. The only thing that's real is the struggle right here, right now.
But here's the thing. A whole year before the manifesto even dropped, the other side was making its own prophecies. Andrew Jackson Davis was predicting that direct communication with a spiritual reality wasn't just possible, it was about to happen. So one side is screaming it's an illusion, while the other is whispering, get ready for an awakening.
Now, while the Fox sisters and their spooky rappings became the public face of spiritualism, the actual philosophical groundwork, well, that was laid by a much quieter and now a mostly forgotten intellectual powerhouse.
So meet Andrew Jackson Davis. People called him the Poughkeepsie Seer. And get this, the guy had less than 5 months of formal schooling in his entire life. Yet, he was pumping out dozens of books filled with this incredibly complex spiritual philosophy. How? Well, he claimed he just checked out, went into a trance, and essentially took dictation from some other non-physical source of information. He called his big idea harmonial philosophy, and it was totally radical for its time because he was rejecting both the fire and brimstone stuff from old-school religion and the cold mechanical universe of the scientific materialists. He was trying to say, hey, what if you're both missing the point? What if the truth is in the middle? And just check out some of the stuff he was talking about. Way back in the 1840s. The soul is immortal. Consciousness evolves. Our thoughts and our emotions literally shape our world. All life is interconnected. I mean, these ideas feel so modern, right? You could walk into a bookstore today and find a whole section on this stuff. But this was almost 2 centuries ago.
But here's where the story gets really compelling. These ideas didn't just fade away with the Victorian era. The sources suggest they kind of went underground, only to pop up again and again through other voices in a way that is just startling.
So you gotta ask, right? Did this incredibly advanced philosophy just fizzle out and become some weird historical footnote? Or did that signal just keep broadcasting all this time?
Now, a lot of you have probably heard this phrase, you create your own reality. It's the absolute cornerstone of the Seth material, which was channeled by Jane Roberts back in the 70s. It basically became the mantra for the entire New Age movement.
A powerful, modern idea, right? Well, maybe not so modern. Because here's Andrew Jackson Davis saying almost the exact same thing 120 years earlier. It's a perfect echo across time. It's just wild.
And listen, this wasn't just a one-off. It's not a lucky guess. When you actually line up Davis's core principles with some of the most influential channeled sources of the last century, I'm talking Edgar Cayce, Seth, Bashar, the consistency is it's stunning. On all the biggest questions, it really does seem like they were all reading from the same script.
In fact, if you really dig deep into the source material, it gets even more specific. There is a near ununanimous agreement across all these independent sources on a specific number of distinct foundational principles. That number? It's 39. 39 points of agreement. Now think about that for a second. If they're all just making this up, how on earth is that possible?
And this is what brings that battle that started way back in 1848 crashing right into our world today. Because right now, the lines between what we used to call mysticism and what we call science, well, those lines are starting to get seriously blurry, especially when you look at consciousness research.
Because it's not just channelers anymore. Now we've got something else to consider, a huge and growing body of scientific research into near-death experiences. And what people are reporting from those experiences, well, it offers another powerful and frankly kind of eerie parallel to that old spiritualist worldview.
So one of the things you hear about again and again in NDEs is this thing called the life review. And as Dr. Bruce Grayson, a top researcher in this field, explains, this isn't like watching a movie of your life. No, you actually feel the emotional impact of your actions on other people. You feel the joy and you feel the pain that you caused.
And here's the punchline. Over 150 years ago, Andrew Jackson Davis, our guy with 5 months of school, described this exact phenomenon, a panoramic life review, where the soul is forced to feel the consequences of its actions on others. It's like he drew a detailed map of a country that our modern scientists are only just now beginning to explore.
So this all leaves us with one final provocative thought. That Great Schism of 1848 wasn't just some historical event. It created two parallel worlds, two versions of reality, one of spirit, one of matter. And they have been at war for our belief ever since. So the ultimate question isn't really about history. It's about right now. After all this, which world do you live in?